So Genese Dadzie is a third-year medical student and covers emotional intelligence and health. Over time, she's worked to develop the skills to become what she calls an emotional conqueror. On her personal journey to becoming an emotional conqueror, she lost both of her parents, fought suicidal ideation for years, and experienced homelessness along the way. She's triumphed over these desperate times through practicing emotional intelligence, and it's now her vision to help individuals regulate their emotions after death, despair, depression, and disappointment. She's seen how delicious life is when we strive for higher feelings such as joy, bliss, and empowerment on purpose, as opposed to letting circumstances dictate our mental states. It is her mission to use her knowledge in the medical field, her study of meditation, and her life experiences to reveal this capability to ride a high-flying disc throughout the world. Because when we assess, strategize, and execute the position of an elevated emotional state, we are in a better position to become conquerors. And with that, I welcome Genese Dadzie to Decolonize to Thrive.
Now, you should understand just why my head's not bowed. I don't shout or jump about or have to talk real loud. When you see me passing, it ought to make you proud. I say, it's in the click of my heels, the bend of my hair, the palm of my hand, the need for my care. Because I am woman, phenomenally, phenomenal woman. That is me. And I'm sure you're familiar with that segment of that poem, and some of your listeners may be. But that one from Maya Angelou is one that really just sits in and it connects in a certain way that makes me just feel good to be alive. And again, that's what emotional conquering is. And though this one is, tailored towards women, but I want for all of your listeners, male and female, to be empowered and feel phenomenal once we're done with this conversation.
I love that. And that's such a powerful introduction to you. And that is by far one of my favorite pieces by Maya. She's a huge role model for me as a woman. I love how she just stood in her power. And that poem is something I keep in the back of my mind when I begin to question aspects of my being. So thank you for that reminder of strength. So I would love for us to start with, you sharing a little bit with us about your life experiences that have led to your growth on an emotional level. Managing our emotions, I feel like, is something that all of us are learning to do as we navigate life. We don't necessarily arrive, but some experiences kind of position us to really take that step of intentionality towards mental strength and emotional strength. And so what were those experiences for you?
Oh, wow. Well, I went from a mess to on my way to being an MD. Back when I was 19, I lost my mother to a brain aneurysm. We weren't staying in the same city. And so I got a call a couple of days later, and they had found her in her apartment after she had been in there 3 days. At that age, at 19, it sent me into a free fall emotionally, like deep depression, despair, and what I mentioned in the bio is just like I felt suicidal on a regular basis. And I went to different family members' houses trying to find that same love that my mother had for me, that same appreciation that my mother had for me. Yeah. And when I didn't find it, it was like I just kind of cut them off, or it'd be burned bridges left and right, to the point where I ended up homeless for a while. And I also mentioned that in the bio. But I ended up homeless, and there was a deep fear that really overtook me when I was living in my car. I didn't even go to sleep for 2 weeks. I didn't sleep at all because I was afraid that someone was going to hurt me while I was in my car. They were going to find me in this vulnerable position and do something to me. And over the years, like things kind of piggybacking off of that loss for me sent me back down in deep, dark depression and wanting to take my own life. But there were always these patterns that would emerge. Okay. After I started noticing, like, okay, I went into deep despair, but there was a ram in the bush, that would bring me to hopefulness again and bring me into a place where I felt powerful again. And so when I started noticing these patterns and started relying on the fact that, hey, things happen and there have been dark times, but you're coming out of those on a regular basis. There's these cycles that are emerging. And once I like let that like really resonate with me, I stopped feeling so depressed. I stopped feeling like, okay, this is the end of the world for me. I just
Mm-hmm.
need to go. I started noticing like, hey, I'm making it through these challenges. And so from there, I started living a life more on faith as opposed to fear. And I began to see the life that I want to develop, the life that I desire and that I dream of, develop in the process as I started adhering to this knowledge of just freedom and knowing that, hey, everything's going to work out fine. Just keep doing the work.
Yeah, there's so much that we can take from just that little bit that you shared so far. The first thing that you shared that really kind of stood out to me is when you were missing that love and that connection to your mom, and how you sought it in other places, and when it didn't feel like what you were accustomed to, that was a cutting off or a burning of a bridge. And it was left and right to where you found yourself kind of in this isolated place of feeling like you were alone. And I think that's something that as we talk more about putting up boundaries these days, right? Like boundaries is a big thing. I've been questioning lately, to what extent does that work for us? To what extent do we start to interrogate, how we, in a lot of ways, are projecting our needs, but not necessarily communicating what we need to others in ways that allow us to understand that sometimes people just they don't have it to give you the way that you want. Sometimes we can put up so many boundaries that we just have built a whole fence around us, so we have no one. Though boundaries are important, so like finding that balance. Another thing you shared that I thought was true for me is compassion. I always believe that no matter how hard things get in life, there's always some little bit of compassion that may come from here or there unexpectedly from the universe. And it seems like that showed up for you every now and then too, to pull yourself out of this space of wanting to kill yourself, to realizing that there is hope. What would you say was an example of compassion or something that gave you a little bit of hope that things could get better on your journey?
I'll say it came after my divorce from my ex-husband, where we went through a rough 6.5 years together. And though he's a wonderful human being, just us, the blend of us together, it wasn't good for the both of us. And so after my divorce, I remember I left his apartment and I went to a hotel, and like I was feeling like I couldn't breathe. Like I just was like, I didn't know what I was going to do. I had a young son at the time. He's about 7, 8 years old. I'm like, I didn't know what I was going to do. And like even now thinking about it, I'm kind of leaning in those feelings. But it was like I was so scared in that moment. Like I don't know what's going to happen to us. And I was thinking the most dark and grim thoughts. But then again, as I started to, okay, put one foot in front of the other, started seeking out, again, going back to work or seeking my education and just kind of building one brick at a time, brick by brick, I started seeing something form that was beautiful.
Yes.
And it was like, okay, I thought that this was going to like crush me. And then again, I went back to me losing my mom. I thought that was going to crush me. And then other instances play out in my mind. I thought those things were going to crush me. I thought I was going to be done by now. And then again, just recognizing that pattern was the thing that helped me to kind of keep chugging along and like get more hopeful about a future, and a future that I would love to live.
Yes. One step at a time, right? Not necessarily looking for the whole picture to make sense, which is something that has deterred me in the past. It's like I need to see the whole path, and if I don't, I get discouraged. And I've learned, and I'm still learning, that it's about moment by moment. You continue to have your goals and the things that you're striving for, but just do the next right thing, as small as that may be. Maybe for the next 5 minutes, what's the next right thing? What makes you feel empowered for the next 24 hours? Sometimes that's all it takes to start, like you said, seeing this pattern, which is in a lot of ways that compassion from the universe is letting you know it's going to be okay. What advice do you have for those who are struggling to find their power their purpose, or who may be feeling stuck in life?
So in one of my speeches I give, I talk about scripture from First Timothy, I believe it is,
Mm-hmm.
that says, God has not given us a spirit of fear, but of
Mm-hmm.
love, joy, and of power and a sound mind.
Mm-hmm.
And so for me, when I take that scripture and I apply it and I embody it, I examine the situations, or because typically it's situations or people that make us feel like we're stuck, right?
Right.
So when we understand that, well, one, I'll come back to that, the people, places, and things, but
Mm-hmm.
understanding that if we are made in the creator's image and he is power, then that's who we are. And so when we align again with the love and the joy and the sound mindedness, we'll get back to the power. We'll get back to the freedom. We'll get back to the joy and the bliss that comes with just being alive. You
Mm-hmm.
know, and so sometimes, and you mentioned boundaries, it's like when we associate with certain people who are not living that out, who are not living in love, and who are not living in joy, who are not living in a purpose aligned with our creator, they make you feel like you can't go out and be powerful. They make you feel, they pull you in with, you know, like a whole
Mm-hmm.
crabs in a
Mm-hmm.
bucket type of situation. You know what I mean? So
Mm-hmm.
being able to set those boundaries with those people and being able to set boundaries within your own mind and say, no, this is not true. This is not who I am. My creator created me to be powerful. So that's who I
Mm-hmm.
am. You know,
Yeah.
and I think about the statement, fake it till you make it.
Mm-hmm.
It's like when people say, oh, I'm going to fake it till I make it. What are they saying? They're going to fake confidence. They're going to fake being brave. They're going to be
Mm-hmm.
fake being fearless.
Yeah.
But if that's who we truly are, if that's who we're created to be, that's the real. You know
That's the
what I mean?
truest
So there's
version of
certain,
us. Mm-hmm.
yeah, that's the true expression of who we are. It
Mm-hmm.
is the fearlessness. It is the bravery. It is the ability to be competent. That's who
Mm-hmm.
we truly are. And so watching the things that you say to yourself, watching the company that you keep that bring you down emotionally,
Mm.
those are signals. Those are pieces of information that you need to hold in your mind. Like for me, I say if something doesn't make me feel good or feel lit up when I think about it, I need to work to either reduce it or eliminate it. And
Yeah.
that's what I
Yeah.
want your viewers to take away. If it doesn't light you up, it's not the path that you should be taking. And it'll lead
Yes.
you away from your power.
Yeah. That resonates for sure. So just to kind of restate, that your advice for people who are struggling to find their power and purpose is to be very mindful of what they internalize, what they ingest, whether it shows up in the form of people or places or thoughts that they allow to kind of permeate the experience that they're having. So being
Absolutely.
very careful about surrounding yourself with people who are pushing you towards your purpose or make you feel like you can, accomplish those things that you want to, versus just letting everybody in and then realizing that it's tugging on your spirit, or it may make you doubtful that you're ever going to accomplish the things that you want to accomplish. And that, and again, doesn't just show up in people. It shows up in the kinds of things that you watch on television, or maybe even the types of, foods that you are consuming, anything that can weigh on your spirit and your way of operating that doesn't light you up.
Yeah, yeah. And you
Yes.
know, one thing that I thought of too, Quincy Jones, he has a quote where he says, he does not have problems, he has puzzles. And so you think of
Mm,
how prolific he's been in the music industry and how many things, like you can imagine how many quote unquote problems he would have
right.
faced
Yeah.
trying to, deal with different artists and go into different spaces. But he says he doesn't even he doesn't even acknowledge the word problems,
I like
so it's
that.
like when we give ourselves permission to think of solutions or be in a solution mindset, we open ourselves up to those solutions, because we can't really do it when we have our peripherals on and we're like, oh, this is a problem. This is a problem. When we
Yes.
open ourselves up to solutions, they come in.
Mm-hmm. I like that. So it's like even reframing the language and the ways that we speak about things and about ourselves. I like that. One of the things that I'm focused on this year as like an aspiration for 2023 is to be more mindful of the way I speak about myself. Sometimes I'm being, silly or just speaking freely. But I'm not always conscious of, the connotation in some of the words that I'm speaking. And I believe words do have power. So I like that, reframing that idea of problems to puzzles. This is something I can figure out, is way more empowering than a problem, which is something that weighs me down or, so I love that. So what do you say to those who don't believe in the power of positive thinking, or believe in themselves to actually make change?
You know what? I think of the parable about the mustard seed that Jesus talked about. And when I've heard different quotes about, like, when people say they tried to do things, they tried. Mm-hmm. Typically, they've done something 3 times or less. Statistically, they've tried 3 things or less when they said they've tried something. So for me, when I hear that, it's like, well, okay, you've tried to, tap into this power. You tried, but have you tried really? And again, back to the mustard seed. Like when we plant seeds, when we plant a mustard seed, I don't think it was addressed in the parable, but the mustard seed, though it's small, it's solid, it's whole, it's complete. And so when we plant these dreams and these goals and these aspirations, they're complete. But what we have to do is keep nourishing it, keep watering it. And if you nourish, if you water it 3 times, well, I tried. Are you going to get a whole healthy plant? No, you're not. It's going to die off. So when we have a mentality of these things that we want to accomplish and this power that we want to tap into, we have to think, and how often have I nourished it? How much am I bringing along people who are stomping it out? Again, when we talk about the people in the company that we keep, are we bringing people that are digging it back up and making it to where it's not going to take root and grow? So those are the types of things that I ask people to say, look, are you nourishing it? Are you watering it? Are you trying to make it grow, working to make it grow? On a regular, are you putting in that work? It's guaranteed. The seed is whole. The seed is complete, but it's up to us to do our part.
Yes. I love that. I love that. So it's about continuing and not giving up. If it's something you truly believe in, you continue to try, and not get discouraged to the point where you pull back. What's the alternative when you pull back and you no longer invest or cultivate something that is important to you anyway, right? Like that's what I always think about as a person who is developing a startup right now, an organization to change educational outcomes for young people, particularly our Black students in public education. It's like fighting an uphill battle, when you realize how many people don't believe in our kids, and how they are such not a priority. Sometimes it's easy to think like this is bigger than me and what am I doing? I really can't make a difference. But then I ask myself, what's on the other side of that? Just walking away. And so it is about continuing to build and to cultivate and to nourish the idea and the seed. I love that you use the mustard seed because it's there for a reason. I have this passion for a reason. I have this belief. This is something that's important to me for a reason. I don't know why. But if this is what I believe in, I have to continue. So I agree with you. For people who are struggling to believe in the power of the mind and positive thinking, have you really tried? Have you just given up because things didn't happen the way you wanted them to instantly? Did you need that instant gratification? And again, ask yourself, what's on the other side of that? What's on the other side of not thinking positively? Right. What do you come up with there when you give up on that idea? Okay. So Genese, I think we're going to have to create a new link because we only got a couple of minutes left on this one. Just so we can do the last couple of questions. So what I'm going to do is send you a new link by email, and then we'll hop on that one and then I'll record. I actually thought I had done my business Zoom, but I see I didn't. So this is the free one.
The other one. Okay. Gotcha.
Yeah. Right. So I'm going to send you that now. And then as soon as you get it, I'll be on the link.
Okay. Then. See you.
Okay. Thanks again.
Okay.
Okay, so the purpose of this podcast, as you know, is to explore and disseminate what it means to decolonize. This is, I think, a really important topic that for me is really the foundation of so much of the work that we do around equity and understanding the need for inclusion and just identity work in general. When we think about, particularly as Black people, our history and the founding of this country, but just globally, our experience as people who identify as Black, we find ourselves overcoming or needing to overcome struggle. Emotion, of course, is a huge part of that. Our mindset, our mentality, um, a lot of that is going to govern, you know, whether we are able to overcome a lot of the struggles. And so it may not be immediately obvious how the work that you do aligns to decolonization, but I just want to, you know, kind of shed light on that because talking about overcoming despair and depression, and, you know, becoming aware of the fullness of yourself and how anything is possible is necessary if we're trying to initiate change, if we're trying to live the fullest lives that we can as people of color, as Black people. And so it's very much so closely aligned to the journey of decolonization because it all starts in our minds, and our mindsets and our belief patterns. So I would love to know, just from you and your unique standpoint, you know, what does decolonization mean?
Ooh, so decolonization to me, it means love, it means joy, it
Mm,
means passion, it means gratitude, it
mm,
means enthusiasm. And a side note, enthusiasm comes from the Greek, meaning to be possessed or inspired by God.
mm.
So it's really hard to colonize or enslave a person who's possessed or inspired by God.
Wow.
And so, in my kind of ruminating on this idea of decolonization and just listening to your podcast,
Mm-hmm.
for me, it's made me again explore some ideas, and some of them were a little bit more challenging to accept or kind of unpacked. But
Mm-hmm.
I read a book from Michelle Alexander recently, The New Jim Crow.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. And if you'll remember, in the beginning, she talked about how when colonizers were looking for more willing or more easily controlled slaves, they looked to Africa.
That's right.
And was it a thing of numbers? There were a lot of Africans, and I'm almost positive they outnumbered those colonizers.
Oh,
So
yeah.
for me, kind of thinking along the
Yep.
lines of being easily controlled, you were already oppressed before the oppressor got there. So again, working from a
Mm,
state of getting out of an oppressed state so we don't attract an oppressor.
mm.
And there's one quote that I thought about too as I was reading that part. And it says, there's strength in numbers. And it's like, well, if there were more of those, how
Right.
how could that be?
Exactly.
So to me, what I take away is there's strength in the individual that make up the numbers. It's not just the
Right.
numbers themselves. So
Yep.
when we align with things like enthusiasm, when we line up, it's hard to enslave somebody who's possessed by God, who's
Mm,
enthusiastic.
mm.
So for me, decolonization is focusing on my alignment with the emotions of our creator. And
Wow.
this is the angle that I'll use this is the angle that I'll use towards the idea of decolonization. It's just alignment with the
Mm,
creator.
mm. You said it all. You said it all because I am a firm believer that anything, any work that you want to participate in, any change that you want to move forward, any belief system that you want to gain traction with other people, it starts within. It starts within yourself. The self work is the absolute necessary foundation for anything that you want to prosper. And so, this idea of decolonization, being possessed by God, the way I experience that is being in tune with the highest version of yourself, being aware of your being and how powerful your thoughts are and the way that you experience the world. um, it is very hard, as you said, for anyone to overtake you physically, emotionally, or mentally when you're clear on who you are, what you stand for, and your power. So that's amazing. I love that definition of decolonization and how you brought it back full circle to the self work and being aware of your connection to God, or for those people who aren't necessarily Christian, who listen to the podcast, higher self, universe, whatever you want to call it, that alignment must be strong. And like you said, if you're already in an unstable position, where you're not aware of that, you are way more vulnerable to to the enslavement or just, the indoctrination of things that may not be in your best interest, including colonization and a colonized mindset. That power in numbers is something that is extremely important because it ain't about the numbers. It has never been about the numbers. It's all about the mentality and the mindset of the individuals who make up those numbers. Exactly. So thank you so much, Genese. That's powerful. Thank you. So as we, come to we conclude this podcast episode, would love to know where we can find you.
Yeah, so I'm developing my website. It's out there now, and I post things from time to time on there about events that I'm doing, webinars, things of that nature. So it's genesespeaks.com. So my first name and genesespeaks.com. That's the main place that you can find me. I'm also on Instagram, Genese_85. I have been posting more inspirational things that are aligned with what I'm developing now as a public speaker now. So you'll see more of that there, and also on Facebook, Genese Marie. Marie is my middle name, so Genese Marie. And then too, I'll be hosting for the next maybe 4 or 5 months. I'll be hosting webinars, online webinars about emotional intelligence and how to become an emotional conqueror, where I break things down, how I've experienced it, and the things that have worked consistently for me.
Yes.
And so that's one thing that I encourage people, if they have a Saturday, it's the second Saturday of every month that I've been doing it at about 11 a.m. Central Standard Time. So if they have 50 minutes, that's how long I've been pretty true to that, keeping it at 50 minutes. Jumping in and getting some gems about emotional conquering, because if we align with that and make that the most important thing, and we have a clear strategy, I want to make emotional intelligence and wellness simple. So this is what I'm doing with my webinars, and so they can join me there as well.
Love that. Eventbrite. Okay. Eventbrite. And that is actually how I found you. And I was able to join one of your webinars. So it was definitely powerful. It stuck with me, and that led to our collaboration on the podcast. So go there, definitely take some gems away and be fed spiritually, because that was the experience that I had. So I just thank you so much, Genese, for the work that you do. You are so important, and I just want to affirm you and thank you for your presence and for participating in this conversation today.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. I love the things that you're doing and the awareness that you're giving to your audience. And I'm just so excited for what you're doing, and being a teacher as well, a substitute teacher. I understand how that can be really important in the work that we do. So just keep shining. And
thank you.
I love to see it.
Thank you so much. All right. Well, you enjoy the rest of your Sunday. And I know that we will cross paths again.
Yes, absolutely. You too.
All right. Take care.